4 times the vitamin C of oranges, and twice the antioxidants of blueberries. A superfood so potent, it saved Britain's children from scurvy when the Nazis cut off citrus. In America, simply having a black currant bush could get government agents sent to torch your entire garden. The ban lasted for half a century, erasing a flavor, a medicine, and a culture, all to protect the profits of the timber industry. Why did a berry celebrated as a lifeline in war become branded a biological plague here? And what was truly gained or lost when the law turned food into forbidden fruit? The answers reveal a battle between public health and corporate power that most Americans have never even tasted. Long before laws or bans, black currants held a place of honor in the world's oldest herbal traditions. In medieval Europe, healers turned to this deep purple berry for its power over swollen throats and raging fevers. Known in some corners as the quinsy berry, it was prized as a remedy for the dangerous throat infections that could silence a child or fell a grown man. The berry's juice, thick and tart, found its way into tonics and poultices prescribed by apothecaries centuries before the word vitamin even existed. Herbal texts from the 1600s record its use against inflammation and infection, describing black currant as the village pharmacy, a plant to be trusted when little else worked. But the story of currants stretches even deeper into the soil. On this continent, long before European settlers arrived, native peoples had already recognized the value of wild currant species. Across the Great Lakes and northern forests, indigenous knowledge keepers gathered native raspberries for food and medicine, using them to soothe coughs, treat wounds, and sustain families through harsh winters. These traditions reveal a respect for the currant's gifts that runs older than any border or statute. When English colonists landed in Massachusetts in 1629, they brought black currant cuttings with them, eager to plant the familiar alongside the new. Early colonial gardens soon filled with the berry's sharp scent, its resilience a comfort in an unfamiliar land. For nearly 3 centuries, black currants flourished in American soil, woven into jams, cordials, and home remedies, passed from hand to hand as both food and lifeline. This was not a weed or a threat, but a legacy plant, cherished by generations who understood its worth. Only later would that legacy be rewritten, and the berry's name recast from healer to outlaw. In the summer of 1941, German submarines prowled the Atlantic, sinking ship after ship and cutting off Britain's lifeline to the world. Oranges vanished from the docks. For the first time in living memory, the British government faced the real possibility of a scurvy crisis among its youngest citizens. The Ministry of Food, searching for a homegrown answer, turned to the black currant. This was not a luxury crop. It was a necessity, rich in vitamin C and perfectly suited to the British climate. Wartime directives encouraged farmers and gardeners to plant black currants wherever they could. Hedgerows, allotments, even bombed out city lots. The harvests poured in, and with them, a new kind of ration, black currant syrup, concentrated and bottled for the nation's children. In December 1941, the Vitamin Welfare Scheme began. Under this program, the Ministry of Food distributed free black currant syrup and cod liver oil to children under 2 years old. For a few crucial months, the syrup became the frontline defense against vitamin deficiency, issued through clinics and welfare centers, filling the gap left by vanished citrus. The bottles themselves became symbols of resilience, dark, sweet, and slightly tart, a taste that would define a generation. Though the official scheme was short-lived, replaced by American orange juice, in April 1942, the impact lingered. Wartime records and family stories recall the syrup by its brand name, Ribena. It was more than a drink. It was a promise that even in the darkest days, the state would find a way to protect its children. While American authorities were preparing to destroy currant bushes, Britain was bottling them and handing them out for free. The Ministry of Food's choice to harness the black currant's power stands as proof of its nutritional worth and its place in national survival. For those who grew up with Ribena, the syrup is inseparable from wartime Britain, a small, sweet shield against a world at war. A nutrition scientist opens a file and points to the numbers. Black currants contain 181 milligrams of vitamin C in every 100 grams of fresh fruit. That is not a marketing claim. It is the official figure listed by the USDA. Oranges, by comparison, offer only about 53 milligrams per 100 grams. In practical terms, a handful of black currants delivers more than 3 times the vitamin C of the same amount of orange. For a child in wartime Britain or anyone today seeking a natural boost, this is a nutritional powerhouse hiding in plain sight. But vitamin C is only the beginning. The deep purple-black color of the currant skin signals a second advantage: anthocyanins. These are the same antioxidant pigments found in blueberries, but in black currants, the concentration is even higher. Laboratory analysis confirms that black currants routinely outpace blueberries in total anthocyanin content, sometimes by a factor of 2 or more. These compounds are known for their role in fighting oxidative stress, supporting blood vessel health, and giving the fruit its signature color. Anthocyanins give the currant its color and many of its benefits. Then there is the secret in the seeds. Black currant seeds are one of the rare natural sources of gamma-linolenic acid, abbreviated GLA, a type of omega-6 fatty acid. GLA is valued by researchers for its anti-inflammatory properties, yet it is almost impossible to find in a standard Western diet without supplements. In black currant, it comes built into the fruit, woven into every seed. The ban did not just remove a berry from the table, it erased a natural source of compounds, now prized in modern nutrition science. GLA is a rare, nutritional asset. Taken together, these numbers tell a simple story. Black currant is not just another berry. It is a fruit that outclasses its rivals in vitamin C, beats blueberries in antioxidants, and delivers a rare fatty acid that most diets lack. For decades, these advantages were locked out of American gardens and kitchens, not because of science, but because of policy. The numbers never changed, only the rules did. In 1911, a new threat was declared not to public health, but to the bottom line of America's timber barons. Federal policymakers, backed by the country's most powerful lumber interests, turned their focus to a single culprit: the black currant. The white pine, prized for its straight grain and towering height, was the backbone of the construction industry. Lumber from these forests built cities, railroads, and fortunes. When a European fungus called white pine blister rust began killing millions of trees, officials looked for anything that could be blamed. The science pointed to the currant bush, which the fungus needed to complete its life cycle. But the real calculation was economic. If the pines fell, so did an industry worth millions. Congress responded by funding a sweeping eradication campaign. The Department of Agriculture was granted new authority under the Plant Quarantine Act of 1912, giving federal agents the power to quarantine, restrict, and destroy plants deemed a threat. USDA's own words from 1927 made the priorities clear. They said the United States can do without them, better than it can suffer the blister rust losses. That sentence captured the official logic: better to erase a fruit than risk the profits of the timber trade. The resulting orders did not just target black currants, but all ripe species, currants and gooseberries alike, treating them as if they were biological weapons. This was not a quiet policy. Federal agents armed with new legal authority could enter private property and demand the destruction of backyard bushes. For decades, the risk of growing currants was not just a fine, but the loss of your plants to government crews. The timber lobby's interests had become federal law, and the black currant was recast from a healer to a public menace. What followed was a campaign of eradication that would reach into every corner of American rural life. Men in canvas uniforms lined up at the edge of forests and farm fields, each carrying a shovel or mattock, their orders clear and uncompromising. The Civilian Conservation Corps, a Depression-era workforce created to heal the land, now found itself on a different mission. The order was to remove every currant and gooseberry bush in sight. Crew leaders handed out maps marked with grids, dividing the countryside into zones to be searched, cleared, and certified as clean. The process was methodical. Workers advanced in rows, shoulder to shoulder, scouring every yard for the telltale leaves and stems of ribes plants. When they found them, there was no hesitation. Roots were dug up, bushes piled high, and matches struck. Smoke drifted over fields as fires consumed the evidence. In some areas, chemicals were poured into the soil to make sure nothing would return. This was not a campaign measured in weeks or months. The eradication squads returned season after season, sometimes for decades, hunting down survivors and regrowth. Reports from the Civilian Conservation Corps archives list millions of plants destroyed, entire valleys stripped bare of a species that had once been a staple of gardens and farms. The work was grueling and relentless. For the men on the ground, it was a job that paid and fed their families in hard times. But for the communities they passed through, it was something else, a loss that crept from the landscape into memory. Photographs from the era show blackened piles smoldering in the rain, lines of men moving through orchards that would never bear fruit again. The government called it progress, a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. But the cost was visible in every empty hedgerow, and every recipe that could no longer be made. Walk into any American grocery store and scan the candy aisle. The color purple means one thing: grape. Sodas, jelly beans, popsicles, every purple treat shares the same sweet, floral taste. But that was not always the case, and it is not true everywhere. In Europe and much of the world, purple means black currant, a flavor both sharper and deeper, layered with tartness and earth. For generations, this taste was woven into daily life, in jams, syrups, and sweets, in family recipes passed down through kitchens that still remembered the berry's name. In America, that memory was erased. The eradication campaign did more than clear bushes from fields. It wiped out a flavor so completely that most Americans have never tasted it. Surveys show that only about 0.1% of Americans have ever eaten a black currant. That is less than 1 in 1,000. The recipes vanished. The stories faded. Grandparents stopped teaching grandchildren how to spot the right bush or simmer the perfect syrup. In its place, grape filled the gap, not because it was better, but because it was available. This was not just a change in what people ate. It was a loss of cultural memory. Oral histories from families in the Northeast and Midwest recall a time when currant jam was a staple on the breakfast table, when children knew the difference between red, white, and black currants by taste alone. After the ban, these traditions withered. In some regions, planting a bush became a quiet act of rebellion, whispered about but rarely attempted. For most, the knowledge simply disappeared. Today, the American palate is shaped by this absence. The flavor that once defined purple for millions is now a ghost, replaced, forgotten, and nearly impossible to find. The cost of the ban lingers in every grape soda and every lost recipe, a gap that most will never even know exists. A plant pathologist stands in front of a diagram, tracing the lines between a pine tree and a currant bush. The fungus at the heart of this story, Carnardium ribicola, does not move freely through the forest. It is bound to a strict routine, one that science calls the two-host cycle. To survive, the fungus must spend part of its life on a currant or gooseberry, and the rest on a 5-needle white pine. Without both, the chain breaks. Spores released from infected pines cannot infect another pine directly. They drift only to ribes leaves, where the next stage unfolds. When the fungus matures on currant leaves, it produces a different kind of spore, one that can only infect pines, not other currant bushes. This dependency means the disease cannot leap from pine to pine in a chain reaction. It needs the alternate host to complete its journey. Later research confirmed that distance matters. Currant bushes growing far from white pines pose little threat. The biology is stubborn. No current, no cycle. This fact underpins every later debate about risk and regulation, turning what once seemed an unstoppable plague into a problem with clear boundaries. Plant breeders in the 1960s set out to solve the problem that had haunted American forests for half a century. Instead of erasing the currant, they worked to outsmart the fungus. In research stations from New York to Minnesota, they crossed black currants with wild species, searching for a plant that could thrive in cold climates and resist white pine blister rust. Their efforts paid off with the release of 3 cultivars, Consort, Coronet, and Crusader. These varieties broke the old cycle. Unlike their ancestors, they could not harbor or spread the rust, making them safe to grow even near white pines. The nationwide ban finally caught up in 1966. The federal ban was repealed, but the story did not end there. Each state was left to decide for itself, and many clung to the old restrictions, out of habit or fear. In some places, the ban quietly faded. In others, it lingered for decades, enforced by outdated laws or cautious forestry boards. Even today, the rules form a patchwork. What is legal in New York might be forbidden just across the border. Modern growers like Greg Quinn in the Hudson Valley have led the revival to reclaim this lost fruit. Thanks to the immune cultivars and a growing awareness of the berry's value, black currants are taking root again, especially in hardiness zones 3 through 8. The comeback is slow, but real. One resistant bush at a time, the possibility of a forgotten superfood is returning to American soil. Planting black currants in the United States today starts with one essential step. Check your state's regulations. The federal government lifted its ban in 1966, but the rules did not vanish everywhere. Some states still restrict black currant cultivation, especially varieties that are not rust-resistant. Before ordering plants or seeds, contact your local agricultural extension office or your state Department of Agriculture. They will have the latest legal status and can point you to approved varieties. If you get the green light, be selective about your source. Buy only certified disease-resistant cultivars like Consort, Coronet, or Crusader from reputable nurseries. These varieties are bred to block the blister rust fungus and are accepted even in regions with strict forestry concerns. Avoid wild or uncertified stock, which could still carry risks for nearby white pines. Growing black currants is possible in hardiness zones 3 through 8, making them a fit for much of the country. With just a few bushes, you can reclaim a fruit once erased from American gardens. The first act is legal due diligence. The second is choosing the right plant. Taken together, these steps let you bring back a forbidden flavor responsibly and without fear. Today, black currant remains restricted and stigmatized in parts of the U.S., despite immune varieties and overwhelming evidence of its nutritional power. As food policy continues to reflect corporate influence, the line between protection and profit grows ever thinner. What we allow and what we ban from our gardens still shapes our health and our history. Sometimes the real forbidden fruit is knowledge. Share your thoughts below and join the conversation.